Hi everybody, it's Courtney, and today I'm going to be using some new products from Trinity Stamps. I'm going to be using the rainbow die set, the Cloudy Day Scene Builder die, as well as the Hello, just the die from the Sentimony stamp set. So I started by die cutting everything here, including two of the clouds from the Cloudy Day Scene Builder die, and I wanted to color the little stripes of the rainbow. So in order to make this a little bit easier, I'm putting some just little tiny dots of Tombow Mono multi glue on one side, kind of smushing that around with my finger, and once that's dry, I'll flip them back over so that they kind of stick to my scrap piece of paper while I do my coloring. I did try to keep these in order, but a little bit separated so that when I color them, I leave myself enough space, and so I know what order they go in. I also put some adhesive onto these little clouds, and I had a little bit extra left over on the side I was going to color, so I just put I used an adhesive eraser to get that off. So I'm just using 3 color blends here for each of the stripes of the rainbows, and I'm pretty much doing the same thing, but I've kept this in the video just so that you could see the color combinations that I'm using. Now I also wanted to announce the winner for the W+9 My Whole Life stamp set, and the winner is Ruth Werbecky. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. So Ruth, I'm going to leave my email address in the description below. If you could just email me with your information and I'll get that out to you. Also, with this video, I'm going to do another giveaway, and this time it will be a $15 gift card to the Trinity Stamp Store. They came out with a new release on the 3rd, May 3rd, and it's amazing, so you guys need to check it out. And like I said, I'll give away that gift card. Just leave a comment, any comment at all, and I will pick the winner on May 10th. So as you can see, I'm just finishing up the coloring of the little stripes of my rainbows here. I'm just adding a little bit of shading on the edges, I guess, or the ends of the stripes, and leaving the highlight on the very top of each of the stripes. In the end, honestly, you can't even notice that I did any shading, so you don't even need to color these. You can cut these out of colored cardstock and make your life a lot easier. So once the rainbow stripes were all colored in, I am going to add a little bit of color to the clouds as well. So I am going to flip these over and add a little bit of shading to the bottom as well as the top where they're kind of indented in, if that makes any sense, because they're puffy clouds. So where they indent in, I'm just going to create a little V there. And I'm starting off with my B91, which is obviously a blue, but it has a lot of gray to it. Next, I'm going to go in with my C3, and I'm pretty much just going over that same area to kind of add a little bit more gray, but you can kind of see a little bit of that blue through it. Next, I'll go in with my C1, and I'm just going to blend this out a little bit further up. I am leaving a lot of white space here, but finally I will go in with my colorless blender. I typically go in pretty quickly with this, but my colorless blender is a little dry, and I just didn't feel like re-inking it. So I did have to go over this a few times just to get rid of those little flick lines that are created when you blend this out to white. So once all of that was done, I'm going to go ahead and adhere my little stripes to this other piece that is also part of the rainbow die set. Now I use the Tombow Mono multi glue. I don't recommend it because it is repositionable once it's dry. So sometimes it kind of squishes out if you put a little bit too much someplace, or if you accidentally touch an area that you don't want to and your fingers get sticky. Once it's dry, it still remains sticky. So I don't recommend using this particular glue, but I found a way to kind of fix it and cover it up in the end. So I'm not really too concerned about it at this point. I just wanted to make sure that my stripes were lined up, and they're actually pretty easy to line up. They kind of just fit right next to each other, and the backing there, or the back piece, is perfect sizing. So I did add a little bit of sparkle to this with my Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen, because of course you need some sparkle on any rainbow. And I went ahead and put this aside. Next, I'm going to bring out the frame that we had die cut here. And I'm going to add a little bit of shading to these clouds as well. First, I kind of just played around with my placement to see if I was going to end up covering up these clouds. I didn't. So I colored these the same way as I colored out the other die cut clouds, just adding a little bit of shading towards the bottom and a little bit where they kind of indent in towards each other or on itself on the top. So once that was done, I took all of my die cut pieces and we're going to start assembling the card. So I have a top folding A2 note card here, and I just wanted to take a quick break and kind of show you a quick fix. Now, we all kind of have frayed edges there. Sometimes when we make our card bases, I just take a sand eraser very lightly and go over that, and it smooths everything out. So don't waste your cardstock. Just use an eraser over it. So I'm taking my card base here. I have this unfolded, or I guess, yeah, unfolded. I used a piece of Post-it note tape just to mask out the back part of my card panel or card base, and I'm using tumbled glass Distress Oxide ink just to add some color to my front panel there, or front part of my card base. I'm not doing any kind of blending or anything. I just wanted to get some color down without making the card even more bulkier than it is, being it is a shaker card. So I went ahead and removed that mask there, and next I'm going to go ahead and adhere my little frame there to my acetate. So I prefer to use wet glue just because I can't seem to line things up perfectly the first time. So I find using a wet glue to adhere something this intricate or something that has to be lined up perfectly is easier for me, just because it gives me a minute or two to kind of move things around if needed. So I did add a little bit of glue all the way on the edges as well as on top of the, or on the back of these little clouds. Adhered my acetate, and now I am just going around the edges with skinny little strips of Scotch foam tape. I cut these down probably like a quarter or a fifth of the actual width of the Scotch foam tape. Now you want to make sure that all four corners of the frame there touch. You don't want to have any gaps at all throughout your foam tape, or else your sequins will kind of get stuck in there. I also put a little piece of Scotch foam tape on the back of each of those clouds, including a little skinny little strip on that top one, just so that my sequins don't get tucked behind there and not be able to be seen. So next I am going to take the puffy cloud embellishments as well as the Walkin' on Sunshine. And the Walkin' on Sunshine is iridescent, and the puffy clouds, some of them are matte finished and some of them are iridescent. So you're going to get a whole lot of shine. So I just mix those up, and then I'll go ahead and remove the backing to my foam tape. I find it easiest to kind of hold on to the center of the panel or the acetate. In this case, I had the clouds to hold on to. So because sometimes if your backing tape gets a little stuck or your backing paper gets a little stuck, your sequins are going to go flying. So just make sure that you have at least one finger down. Next, I'm going to go ahead and lay down that card base right on top and make sure that's pressed down real well before I move on or flip that over. So next I'm going to lay out my clouds, and like I said, they're repositionable, so I still have some of that stick left from that Tombow Mono multi-glue, and so they kind of stick to where I want them to be and leave a little bit of a residue, so it's easy for me to find exactly where I had them placed, just kind of playing around. So I adhered those down with my wet glue, and then I'm going to go ahead and adhere my rainbow as well. I added a little bit more shine to that, but I think I did that later. Yeah, I did that later. Next, I'm going to use a little piece of Stick It, which is a double-sided adhesive, and I use this on the back of some intricate dies. And I'm just going to remove the backing on one side, lay that down onto a piece of white cardstock. This is Nina. And I'm going to use the die from the Hello Sentimini stamp set. And I wasn't sure if I was going to use both of the dies, but I ended up just using the outline of the word. Just using a little pokey tool because sometimes the Stick It can kind of stick into your die and it kind of defeats the whole purpose of using it. But I just kind of use that same pokey tool there, and this is a Cricut one, to remove the backing of the Stick It, and then it will stick right down. It is still repositionable until you apply a lot of pressure. So once you're happy with the placement, press it down hard and you're good to go. So here's where I add a little bit more sparkle to the rainbow. And being I didn't do a great job gluing down these little stripes because I have those sticky areas, I figured the best way to fix this is to add some glossy accents on top of it. This will give it some additional shine, but it will also make sure that all of my little stripes are laying down flat and there's no sticky residue to it. So I squeeze a little bit out on a scrap piece of paper to make sure there's no air bubbles. And then I'm just going to go around the edges using the nozzle to make sure I get right to the edge. Once I have the entire image outlined, I'm just going to go through and fill in the middle and kind of let that spread out. And you're about to witness an almost disaster. When I put the cap back on, the little piece of scrap paper there kind of picks up and lays directly face down onto my glossy accents. But I was able to fix it. It didn't squish out. So we're good to go. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot for stopping by and have a great day.